What is up, everybody? This is John with Archer Film. All right, this next movie is The Watchers by Ishana Night Shyamalan. It is M. Night's daughter. He also produced it. And, man, I don't know if this is like the worst case of a Nepo failure, but the storytelling is absolutely abysmal. It is horrible. Now, this is not a bad movie per se. The visuals are gorgeous. There's some really cool, scary moments and really nice, visually interesting and scary scenes. There's so much like mythology packed into this, but very little storytelling. I think overall, again, spoilers, that what they did was they took a lot of cool stuff and made a horrible concept out of it. Now, when you have an idea for a film, okay, again, spoilers, the monsters, the Watchers, are these fairy demon things that have lived in the forests of Ireland forever, and they basically have been relegated to these holes in the ground because they had a falling out with humans. So here's the thing. If you're going to tell that story, and these are like sort of creatures that can kill you and mimic humans and all this stuff, there's got to be a better way to tell it than young woman who's distraught goes into the middle of the woods and, you know, is like gets lost in a supernatural woods and takes shelter in a weird postmodern, you know, home with a bunch of other people that tell her she can't leave that home. Like, that's just a weird way into the story. That's a weird way into the mythology. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think it was a visual choice, but not a very smart one, and not very scary either. I think what they could have done and should have done is, if you're going to tell this story about these creatures that live in the woods and their mythology and all this stuff, is you have a secluded house out there and people living at it or moving to it, and they start experiencing crazy things, whether it's seeing, you know, people that they thought were dead coming back, or, you know, winged creatures at night on the roofs, because they do have the same sort of visuals, but the storytelling is all sort of messed up. It's all jumbled. Like, there was no real horror. Like, the whole opening sequence is one of those things that seems unnecessary. Like, we have to have a scary sequence at the beginning to get the audience hooked, but it was nonsense. It was a side character who barely, like, he comes back later, but it was not really important. And so you have this whole opening sequence that just didn't make any sense. So I just didn't understand why that was the way into this world. And then it just, I don't know, it just got worse from there. I was so uninvested in the characters and the story that I was like getting sleepy. Like, even with the cool, like I said, it was not bad acting. It was shot well. The soundtrack was great. The direction was great. I just was not invested in the characters or story at all. Like, I just kept like losing interest, kept like almost falling asleep. And by the time it gets to the end, it just was not the main character wasn't driving a lot of it. You know, Dakota Fanning is a great actress, I think, and has a great look. Like, her character wasn't driving the story at all. You know, they had the sort of prerequisite, she lost her, you know, her mom and hasn't forgiven herself. And it just like seemed like unnecessary. Like, why is that the storyline? You know, it just didn't make any sense. Now, and I know these movies are completely different, but take a movie like The Descent. It is an amazing movie. It is scary. It is terrifying. And it's like kind of similar in someone dealing with grief. They go spelunking. They have to deal with this other dynamics. And then the creatures come out and it becomes like a survival thing. It's just sort of done with more fun. This movie just seemed like a lot of visuals thrown together, and like the storytelling was just incredibly sloppy. Like, there are archetypes for a reason because they work. You have to have certain characters for a reason. You can't just have this jumbled mix of people. And I just feel like, you know, it failed on that level. Like, it was never, there was a couple of like thrilling moments. I call them thrilling because it wasn't scary at all. You know, there's just no sort of buildup. Like, how are you supposed to relate to that? Like, the best horror is scary because it's relatable. Okay, like, it's things that you can wrap your head around. Being at a postmodern sort of bunker in the middle of the Irish woods is not really something that you can wrap your head around. Like, you don't feel like, oh, man, this could happen to me. That's why it's terrifying. Now, if it was just she gets lost in the woods on this trip, or she goes to stay somewhere, like, that's why it's such a trope in horror movies, because we've all done it. We all like to go stay somewhere secluded, or, your first move to a new place. These things are real, and you can kind of relate if you start seeing wacky monsters in the woods. That's always an interesting idea, and I thought the mythology and the characters would have really added something unique to that, that sort of cliche of, you stay at a new house and you discover there's monsters living in the woods. That's always really a cool story. So you just have to shape the story, the characters, and the theme around that. It's an archetype for a reason. But, staying at a postmodern bunker in the middle of the Irish woods, and there's these creatures, and, like, for some reason, like, they make it seem like they're aliens and they want to watch us or whatever, but really they're just they want to watch so they could mimic us. And it just doesn't make any sense. The twist at the end, I'm like, yeah, it's not really a twist. Didn't have any real meaning for me. It wasn't scary. They kind of fell into it. It was, like, very convenient. Oh, she goes to this place and sees some pictures, and it kind of gives away this ending. And I'm like, what? You just saw it in pictures? Like she's being told what to do by other characters, and she just does it. There's not a whole lot of agency on her part. It just seems very, like, all the elements of a good story are in there. The main character dresses up. There's the things that mimic you. There's watching of the reality show, like they're the reality show. But it just seemed like a bunch of elements cobbled together with no cohesion. Like, what are you trying to say? Like, what is the meaning behind this? And again, Night is an incredible screenwriter. Sixth Sense, Unbreakable are two masterpieces. He's done some other really good ones, but those two are his masterpieces. Then he's also faltered because there's no one telling him, no, The Happening is crap, dude, even though all the studios passed on it. And I think that's the case with his daughter. He maybe wanted her so badly to do this, and she wanted so badly to do it, that they let her get away with, like, making this incoherent movie. And again, making movies is hard. I get it. But when you have, like, that kind of pedigree and that kind of money behind it, and you can pretty much do whatever you want, you got to get the story right first. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening. I will see you tomorrow.